Hello and welcome to the Comic Salt Live Show. This is the chat show where we're going to discuss everything in the tabletop hobby. I am Wild Chevy, and as always, I'm joined by my buddy Casey. Casey, how are you this week?
Hola, muchacho. I'm doing pretty good this evening. It's been a good weekend. So, whoa. And Alan just was attacked by a zombie. You heard it here first, folks. The zombie apocalypse is upon us. And Alan Wild Chevy has been our first victim. I look forward to shooting him in the head.
Yeah, I've seen you aim at broadside of a barn.
So, Alan, what have you been up to this week?
This week has been a lot of hobbying. As the show notes say, this is Road to the LVO, so I've been building up my army for the LVO IT.
So, I mean, obviously, we're not going to ask you to spill the beans of what you're bringing for your ITC championship winning list. But let's suffice to say, it's not something that you usually play. Is that correct?
Here's a photo of it, so you can guess whatever you want. I mean, there's more to a list than just what the photo shows. But yes, it will be the Blood Angels and the Scions.
That's a fairly low count model army you've got there.
Well, you got to make do with what you have. I'm not one of those who likes to spam.
I didn't see a whole lot of painted models in there. It looks like most of it's still bare plastic at this point.
Oh, that's the thing. That's what you're going to be seeing me do for the last little while. Like right here, I've got the Commissar. That's the last thing I have to build for this list. And everything goes into the paint studio.
Is it going to be bumped up to the front? Or do you have a few things ahead of it?
We've got a few things ahead of it, but it's assembled, so it'll get there. But other than that, this week I went to a painting class, a painting master class, hosted by the Salt City Gladiators, featuring Ashton Holbrook, who was the winner of the Lock and Load painting competition this year.
Care to share what you painted while you were there?
Yeah, let me bring that question. So we painted ogres, or Ogre Kingdom ogres, and yeah, this is what I ended up with from the weekend or from the day painting. Learned a lot of new stuff, some new painting techniques, so how to do some composition and everything. So, and I got a lot of good tips out of it. Help me improve.
Nice. You feel like that's helped you grow as a painter then?
Yeah, I've always been told I've got the skills. I just need the application is what I'm lacking on.
You do need to apply yourself more. Yeah, he's looking pretty nice. Looks like you didn't get to finish all of them, but
it was
the pants look good and the back looks nice.
It was 10 hours of class, so you like especially the back. Yeah, I had learning some new painting techniques. Took some time, but yeah.
Very, very cool, sir.
And how about you?
Was it? Oh, for me?
Oh, yes.
No. Well, let me show you. I've been. I wrapped up the buildings that I've been working on these last couple weeks. You guys saw me assembling them the other week. So here they are both together with Alkinase in front of them, just to kind of give you a little bit of scale. So we did one up in red and one up in yellow. This is just to kind of give you an idea of how large they are on the inside. And by that, I mean not very. So for skirmish games, they're pretty nice. You can use the interior for it. For anything larger than a skirmish, you would never even bother trying to send people inside there because you're only going to be able to fit 3 or 4 models tops inside of them. But
and who made these?
Pardon? These were made by Underground Lasers. This is their Mark I isolation container, and this is one of those pieces that just really kind of talked to me. Like,
did it call you dirty girl or something like that?
It used some dirty words, I won't lie. But just the design of it, it's essentially just a box. However, like the round windows, these insets in front of the windows, just really like little TIE fighter wings coming off the side, just really gave it some heft and some bulk. And so it was really easy to see it as, this is like a prisoner transport or an ultra secure, command center. It just felt like it had a lot of character to it. So I really dug it. Did it all up with the airbrush, did some shadowing, which came out nice on it, and I even threw a little bit of weathering on there. So these were quite fun to paint, and I quite enjoyed it. So did one in red, did one in yellow, just cause. So I think that they took to weathering very well too. So I'm quite happy with them. But speaking of Underground Lasers and terrain, I'm working on some new stuff now from them too.
So am I. Well, not new. I did because I did build up some for collaboration work I'm doing with Dormicon, but I got the bridge here. Finally got that assembled. It took me a while to figure out because it's no longer in production, I think.
They tend to do like short runs of stuff, I've found.
Yeah. So this one was very interesting to build because there's no instructions.
They have a few YouTube videos, and if you watch them, you can kind of understand like their design philosophy and kind of how they expect to build things. But I've found overall, yes, they are complicated builds.
Well,
you have to sit down with those and really think about how you're going to build them out first.
Well, like with that one, since it was out of production, there was no photos. So I had to do some heavy searching. Luckily, I found some very old photos on their Facebook page that showed it a little bit up close. So I was like, okay, I think I could do this now. But yeah, I'll be painting up some MDF here soon.
After you get your LVO list painted, correct?
We'll see.
Apply yourself. So I'll show you what I'm working on. This was from their Kickstarter that they had a while ago. It was actually their second Kickstarter. It's a set of arcade cabinets. And it was actually a lot of fun. I pulled out the airbrush. I primed them black, these pieces. But I really had no idea how I wanted to paint them. So I started off kind of looking at like old arcade machines. And what you find is that, if you go back, 10, 20 years to the 80s, which I am a child of, you see kind of the design trend was it was a black cabinet with a lot of brighter neon colors, like a lot of high saturation going on. And so what I did was I took the airbrush, started with black, and then did a white base to get kind of like that nice lighting effect. And then just start going over secret weapon washes. So like here's the front of that one. That'll have an acrylic piece in it. And it was a lot of fun because I went down to the 0.2 needle. And that's the first time I've ever used something that detailed. And I've been able to do some really cool stuff on this. So, get like a neon sign, and along with, there's like some playing cards, and I was even able to paint all the diamonds individually with them. Here's kind of like their Space Invaders cabinet. A lot of fun. So, but again, it's a very complicated build. It looks great, but you need to take your time building these. Don't just slap them together. Definitely dry fit everything, and make sure you're building it the best way possible. Because if you don't, you will be hurting. So that's not a knock on them, but because they're really complicated builds, tend to turn out really nice and pretty. So that's what I've been working on this week. So I've got like a dozen of these arcade cabinets that I'm going to put together, and they'll make for some very nice scatter terrain.
And you'll use those in Infinity, right?
Yeah, they'll be great for Infinity objectives, but I think they'll also just make some nice table dressing, even for like 40K or something.
Yeah. Speaking of Infinity, last week we were talking about the RPG, and it was supposed to launch last week, but they held back on it, and it'll be going on this week, Tuesday.
Yeah, when has a Kickstarter ever launched on time? So that's okay. That just means we'll have more to talk about next week, right?
More money for you to spend.
Don't even get me started on that. So
come on, TC, give us a numerical amount. How much do you want to spend? It's not like there's anybody in the room.
I think 50 to 60 US dollars would be okay. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm still waiting for like all of those figures that they've shown have been nice, but none of them are really speaking to me. As we can see here, Alan is cleaning off some, looks like some flashing on maybe what is a commissar head.
I'm a painter, so it's always got to be clean before I paint it.
No one else will ever see those flashing lines, but you'll know they're there.
Yes. Nothing like halfway into a paint job and you notice a seam line.
And it's the only thing that you'll ever be able to see for the rest of your life.
No, the artists are their worst critiques.
So while you're getting ready for LVO, I would like to talk about LVO, if that's all right.
Go right ahead.
So you're getting ready for the championship, but the other, which by the way I think we mentioned, is sold out. 280 people in less than a week. Their narrative, which was 50 people, has sold out. They have over 200 players for War Machine. Their Night Joust, they hadn't put a firm cap on it, but they're looking at putting a firm cap on it now, just because so many people are signing up for it. And their team tournament didn't have a cap before, but they're looking at it in place because at this point, I think they said they have 17 teams signed up.
17?
17, 17.
Huh. So,
needless to say, everything is selling well. So if there's an event that you want to participate in, buy your tickets now.
Well, if you're a Malifaux player, you just got to cross your fingers and wait, because there's nothing going on there's no organizer yet for Malifaux.
They actually did have an organizer, and they had someone who was planning it all out, but that person ran into some
Life.
problems. Yes, life. But they actually are coordinating directly with Weird to try and get something figured out and set up. So it might be a little bit delayed, but I have a feeling that whatever they do is going to be very high quality, and people are really happy with how it turns out. So, now, the thing that I'm most personally excited about is the team tournament. If you're not familiar with it, this is very similar to the ATC, the American Team Championship. It's where you have a team. In this case, it'll be 6 people. Everybody will have their own army inside of that, and they're all going to play separate games against another team. And then you take the results of those 6 matches, add them all up to determine which team wins. So I thought we could sit down and take a look at these missions, because they put the missions out, and they are interesting, to say the least.
And we have a team.
And we have a team. And being the engineer that I am, I like to break things down and analyze.
Oh, I thought you were going to get some beatbox going.
Okay, enough of that. All right, so the way it works is there's going to be 3 rounds, or 3 scenarios. And inside of each one of these scenarios, you're going to have 3 different missions going on. The first and probably simplest one is always like your bonus points. So every mission has First Blood, Slay the Warlord, Linebreaker, and Big Game Hunter. And each one of those will be worth 1 point apiece. So we don't need to go into them any more than that. Next is each mission will have Maelstrom missions, or Maelstrom objectives. So you'll have 5 objectives. You'll have, and numbered wise, you'll have 2 objectives numbered 1, 2 objectives numbered 2, and 1 objective numbered 3. The 3 objectives will go in the dead center of the board. The 1 objectives will each go within your deployment zone, and the 2s will be outside of your deployment zones. And they have a modified Maelstrom mission table here. We'll take a look at that real quick. So 2 is 2 victory points if you destroy 3 units in a single phase of the game. It's non-specific. 3 is, again, it's the same thing. So you'll see that these are actually repeated quite a bit here. 4, earn a kill point. 5 through 9 is secure objectives. 10 is earn a kill point. 11 and 12 are score victory points if you control 3 objectives. So really, when it comes down to it, there's actually 7. So a little over half of these all include holding objectives. And as I said before, that's going to be in every single one of your missions that you're going to play. So you're definitely going to need to looking at a list that's going to give you units that are mobile enough and potentially have objectives secured, so you can grab those missions when they come up.
Now, there's restrictions for teams, right?
Yes, there are. Essentially, the way it works is there's no duplicates. So, for instance, if you were to take Space Marines, that means that nobody else on your team could take Space Marines.
And that's
even
the full or the detachments?
Both. So let's say, for instance, you decided to take Space Marines with a Night Titan. That even though that Night Titan was only like an ally or a Lord of War or whatnot, nobody else in your army can take that. So, which is almost too bad. Like, I understand why they're doing it, is to give variety to the field. But at the same time, I think it would be kind of cool if you had everybody set up just to take, like you said, oh, we're all going to play Ultramarines. You're going to be first company, I'll be second company, you'll be third company. You know, so you just have like this grand army all kind of working together. So I think there should be allowances for that, because I would totally like to play against that army or that team.
You can suggest that to him for next time.
Yep. So, even though this is competitive, this is considered to be a tournament for fun.
It's the last day of a convention. It's not. Nobody's going to have the wits about them to be super competitive.
Oh my gosh. Have you seen? So first of all, this tournament starts at 9:30 in the morning, right? Dice start flying at 9:30, right?
People are going to be ripe.
Yeah. But what I'm getting at is, so after several days of playing in the championships, because I figure most people are going to be former championship, everybody who didn't make the top 8 tables. But then these are 3-hour rounds of 3 rounds. And you figure that they're probably going to put half an hour to an hour between rounds. This is going to be a long tournament. Like, this is a full day. This isn't just a quick, we're going to play for a couple hours and be done. Like, you better strap in for this bad boy. Because you got at a minimum 9 hours of this.
Yeah. So that's 7, 8 o'clock.
Conservatively, that's assuming everything is running on time and smoothly. Because they'll probably want to take an hour for lunch. Then maybe another hour between tournament. Yeah, Sunday will be a long day.
Oh, it's Super Bowl Sunday, so.
Yeah, what would you do? Watch sports?
Sports ball.
Please. Okay, so anyways, as we said before, so in each scenario, you're going to have your regular, like, First Blood, Slay the Warlord, Linebreaker garbage. You're also going to have Maelstrom objectives going on in each game that you're playing. So let's look to see what makes these missions actually different.
So the ITC missions, right?
They're an ITC format, but these missions are specially made for this tournament. So list building will be ITC format. But these missions might be a little different. So mission 1 basically is Crusade objectives. So you're using the same objectives that you're using for Maelstrom objectives. So it's just a straight up objective game. So you're trying to take and hold objectives while also playing a Maelstrom. So you're going to be moving from objective to objective. So what this means is you're going to need a lot of units, preferably small units. But one thing to notice is that Maelstrom objectives are scored at the end of each turn, whereas the Crusade objectives are being scored at the end of the game. So this is telling me that you're going to want units that can get onto an objective and can hold that objective. So there's only 5 objectives. One is going to be in your deployment zone. One is going to be the center of the board. One should be in a place favorable to your choosing. So that conservatively, you should be able to hold the one in your deployment zone. You should have one just outside of your deployment zone in cover of some kind that you can quickly get to. And then you want to try and secure the one in the middle. Because the way the Crusade objectives work, all you need is more objectives than your opponent for 8 points. And again, if you're covering 3 of the objectives for Maelstrom, and as we saw, over half of those Maelstrom objectives are taking and holding objectives, and remember they're objectives 1, 2, or 3. And if you hold the one in your deployment zone, the one just outside of your deployment zone, and the one in the middle, you will have 1, 2, and 3 covered. That's how you're going to win this game. There are 3 objectives that you're going to want to take, and you're going to want to be able to hold it. So you're not only going to want something with the objective secured to try and kick anybody else off that objective, but you're going to need something durable as well. Scenario 2. Now this is a little bit different because we still have our Maelstrom objectives, but this time we're looking at kill points. So obviously that that multiple small units with lots of drop pods of rhinos littering all over the board, that was so amazing in your first round, is now actually going to become a bit of a problem for you because you're just going to be shedding kill points all over the place. And I think it'll be very, very difficult for like a full drop pod list with lots of small units to actually keep up in terms of the amount of kill points that they're giving off.
Well, and it's all based on points, team points, right?
Correct.
So you could have a bad game, but you have 5 other people to count on.
That is correct. So kind of the meta that's happening here is you're going to want to try and make good matches for yourself. So if you have, so in turn 1 or in round 1, where we're just looking at trying to take and hold objectives, and let's just say an MSU drop pod list is going to be very, very useful in scenario 1. And you can pair that against whatever else you think is going to do well. Because you know it'll be a strong matchup. However, in scenario 2, you're going to want to try and find another list that has a lot of kill points to give up. That way, your MSU drop pod list has a chance of gaining as many kill points as they're giving away. Then finally, in scenario 3 is Emperor's Will. This is a little different. So for your scoring, you're going to set up all of your objectives as normal. However, remember we said objectives 1s will be in each of your deployment zones. And so those are your Emperor Will objectives. Those are the only objectives that we'll say this part cares about. So you want to have more of those than your opponent at the end. So not only do you have to take and hold the one in your own deployment zone, but you have to be able to go over into their deployment zone and take and hold their number 1 objective and be able to hold both of those objectives at the end of the game. So again, I see this, you're mostly going to be playing Maelstrom objectives the whole game, and then at the very end, you're going to make this last stab at your opponent's heart. So Maelstrom and whatever the scenario-specific missions are weighted equally. So, and in mission 1 and in mission 3, you're going to be going after objectives. Now, feel free to call me an idiot here, Alan, but it seems I was waiting for you to finish.
That's what she said.
Well, yes, they're always waiting for me to finish because I always last longer. Yeah, see, you don't know what to say on that one, buddy.
And I was waiting for your wife to chime in.
Oh, she's got her headphones in. So, call me crazy, but the way that you make this tournament work is with lots of small scoring units. Because and about 75% of all of your point scoring objectives involve getting on objectives and holding them until either the end of the turn or the end of the game. So not only are you going to need things that can move quickly, but you're also going to need to have those brick units, whether they're to sit in your deployment zone or to hold the middle of the table, and eventually at the end of the game move towards your opponents. So I think one of the things that I really like the idea of is imagine taking like a Grey Knight list with what's that detachment called where you get to essentially do a null deployment and they all get to deep strike in?
Nemesis Strike Force?
Okay, yeah. So imagine taking 2 to 3 Dread Knights and you get to deep strike them and essentially hold the middle of the board, right? You know, you could just throw like a small squad of whatever garbage you want in your own deployment zone. But you have those 2 or 3 Dread Knights sitting in the middle of the board, And then when it's your last turn, they use that shunt maneuver to jump over to the other guy's side of the board and just clear off their objective. Or if you can control your deployment, like having a squad of Terminators come in, like think about like a Deathwing squad with their detachment, where you actually get to choose the turn that they come in. And now, turn 4, turn 5, you have a full squad of Terminators come in, and again, just clean off your opponent's objective. So we see a lot of games that focus, or we see a lot of lists that focus on killing your enemies well. So you see a lot of things like.
Well, there's always alpha strike lists.
Yes, there's always alpha strike lists, and to be fair, that is a tactic that I've heard people say. If I kill enough of their stuff, then they're not able to score any points, and I will win. Which is a fair assessment. However, what we saw at ATC, there were hard lists, don't get me wrong, but they were also lists that emphasized mobility and being able to adapt, and change up what objective they're moving to. Because I think what you're going to see here, I think the lists that are going to do well aren't the lists that can hand out a lot of damage, but are the lists that can quickly reconfigure themselves. To be able to move from this objective then to this objective. To be able to focus a lot of firepower on one single unit very quickly, in a single turn to earn a Maelstrom objective. Because those Maelstrom objectives are going to be worth as much as the mission's primary objectives. So even if one person has more objectives at the end, if you scored as many more Maelstrom points than they have, you've essentially tied the game. And because this is a team game, a lot of times you might just be fighting for that draw, because you had a poor matchup. Well, your other stronger teammates are actually scoring the points for your team. What's your assessment, Alan?
I think it's going to be interestingly difficult to arrange 6 people to be as 6 different codices. 6 plus, I guess, because you have detachments. It'll be difficult to arrange them to be as cohesive as your analytical brain is hoping to be.
Okay, why do you say that?
Because some armies are not designed to be as adjustable.
Sure. Well, I think that comes down to you're going to be playing on a team. So, and just like on any team, you don't have a whole team of quarterbacks. You don't have a whole team of goalies. Everybody on the team has a different role. And so take, for instance, a team that might not be as mobile or as able to get around the board as quickly. Those might be a little bit more static armies, or those might just be single-purpose armies, like, say, orcs. Orcs run at you and hit you. They don't do a lot of other things. But what they do well. So what you might be looking at is one person might just be like your rock, or kind of like your anchor man. He's the guy that you can throw out there because you know that he's not going to go for the win, but he's going to play for the tie. So he may not score a lot of points for you, but you know he's not going to get wiped off the table. And I think that's where the advantage comes in, is not everybody plays for the win, but as you mentioned earlier, since you're a team, you have people playing for ties and playing with this greater meta in mind.
Well, and that goes to the broad scope meta of who you pair against. Because I mean, then because you're going to be it's a blind pairing, right?
Semi-blind. The way it works is one team will put out a person, and then the other team will match one of that person with one of their teammates. And then the process is reversed. Then the other team will put out a person, and that other team will then get to match one of their people against it. So theoretically, 50% of the time you should be making matchups that are favorable to you. So that other 50% of the time, that's where you're going to want those rock units, or the blunt object that you can essentially just throw out there, and you don't know what they're going to get hit with, but you know that they're going to be able to absorb damage and at least eke out some points. And Alan is busy assembling a sword.
Well, so with your master gameplay, which one of our compatriots would you say would be the rock?
I have two people in mind, and I'll tell you why. The first one is our orc player. Because you take 3 squads of 20 boys and you move them out into the middle of the field, they're going to be very, very difficult to dislodge. Nobody's going to want to assault them. I don't care how big your Super Friend star is, but if you get into a fight with 20 orcs, you're not going to wipe them out in the first turn. And then you're going to have another 20 boys piling on top of it. And then I also like the idea of you being our other rock. So I like the idea of Grey Knight Terminators moving up and taking a central objective. Because while a single Terminator can be killed with overwhelming firepower, a large squad of Terminators are a little difficult. And especially like Grey Knight Terminators, you're going to have a lot of psychic powers that you can buff them up. So you can improve their invulnerable save. You can make it difficult for everybody around you. And when you're in the center of the board, using something like Sanctuary becomes very powerful. And then, like I said, I think Grey Knights have that ability to do a one-time move with like their Dread Knights or Drago's Gates of Infinity. You put Drago and a bunch of Paladins, they can lock down the center of the board fairly well. They can't be everywhere, but they'll hold what you need them to and then jump onto something at the last minute. So in my mind, that's going to be the rock units of our team. Or theoretically, if people decide to play that. Austin might not want to play orcs, you might not want to bring Grey Knights. I'm just thinking in theoreticals here. Whereas you'll have Darren, who usually plays a drop pod list. He'll be one of those guys that we'll want to be careful about how we match him up. Because he will give off a lot of kill points. But when you have 7 small squads with drop pods coming down everywhere, he can be a lot of places at once, and he can double up and take a lot of objectives. And then also with my Tau, I'm able to infiltrate a lot of guys.
Well, your Tau at the moment, because you might be getting a codex.
This is true. I am a bit of a question mark right now. So we'll see if there's a new codex. I'm not saying that there won't be. I'm just saying that there were very scant rumors that came out, and they've all kind of evaporated now. So if we get a new codex, we'll see. But as my codex currently stands, I can dish out a lot of firepower in very small areas. So I'm good at wiping out single units. But I also have a lot of maneuverability with crisis suits, infiltrating suits, fast piranhas, my jump shoot jump. So, but at the same time, I'm also not very durable, so I can give up kill points relatively easy as well. So that's generally what I have in mind for right now. What are your thoughts on what potential rock units or people in our team, how they might fall into, what roles might they be?
I don't know. Our NID player, well, the metas for NIDs is very odd now. It's flying circus with mama bugs stacked on top of the sky shield landing pad. So if our compatriot plays that list, it'll be interesting.
Well, if you remember, the person who won LVO last year was a Tyranid player.
Yeah. I don't know who won the Nova Open this past week.
Oh boy. I can't remember. I do remember. It was a combination. He was using Space Wolves, Thunder Wolves, and he allied that with Dark Knights or Black Knights from the Dark Angels. And then I'm missing something. Some other biker unit. And then he had like a Librarium Conclave. So, like Tigerius and a bunch of other librarians to buff them up. And he put them all on bikes because the Thunderwolves bring the pain in close combat. The Dark Knights, or the Black Knights, bring like a 3+ rerollable Jinx save. And the Librarians make everything better. So the Librarians could turn that into a rerollable 2+ cover save. If they came up against something that was ignoring cover, then they could buff up invulnerable saves and that sort of thing.
This seems horribly, horribly broken.
Yes, it does. The good news is, though, when you think about that, that covers Space Wolves, Dark Angels, plus Ultramarines.
Yeah.
Which means that one person can pull that off in a team, but nobody else is going to be able to use those 3 armies again. And there's a lot of other things that those armies do really well. So, Black Knights, so like a Raven Wing is really strong. People are just finally now, I think, starting to understand how good Deathwing and Raven Wing are. Obviously, the Space Marine book is amazing. There's a lot of great options there. And, Space Wolves on Thunder Wolves can make for a really nasty Death Star unit. And so you have those 3 lists, and I would say that all 3 of those are on the high end of codices right now in terms of power that you've sucked up in one team. So if somebody wants to bring that, they are really leaving the rest of their teammates in a lurch. Careful. Now just hold them that way for 20 minutes.
I think I put basic material on there too.
So that's what won Nova Open.
So that'll be interesting.
All right. Well, I think I've talked enough, Alan. Is there anything else you want to add to this?
No, I think, yeah. We'll be seeing a lot more of our thoughts and progress. Because one of the parts of ITC is painting. You do have to have a painted army to get any prize support.
Yep. And in a lot of cases, you actually need a painted army to play. So, which I agree with. It just shows respect to your opponent. If somebody's going to go all the way out there and pay all that money to attend a tournament, they don't want to be looking at bare plastic or proxies. You need to do it right.
Yeah, it's the big boys table.
Yep. So don't get me wrong, and we've all done it. Like especially around here, we've played unpainted models, we've played proxies, and in our basement, and sure, go for it. But yeah, if you're going to the big boys, gonna go play with the big kids, you need to be painted and you need to be accurate. So, yep, got a lot of painting I need to do.
Yeah. Maybe, well, from what I hear, next month for Forge World is going to be, we'll see that new Tau Titan.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
So maybe you'll get some new rules for a fancy Tau Titan.
I don't know. So it'll probably fall in as a super heavy. I mean, because if you've seen the pictures, it's only slightly smaller than a Warhound Titan.
Well, yeah, but a Warhound Titan or a Night Titan is smaller than a Warhound. This thing towers a little bit over it.
Yeah, it's bigger than a regular Knight, but like the taller Forge World Knights, it's about the same height but far bulkier. Although I'll be honest, like what they've done with the Forge World Tau suits, like those big ones, is they come out with like really amazing trial rules. And then everybody screams about it. And then they nerf those rules down to the point where you don't really want to play with them.
Well, you have Farsight?
I do.
Or is that the Forge World one?
There is no Forge World Farsight.
Or what's your Forge World suit that you bought?
So I have the old Forge World Shasso Relay. I think that's how you Relay. I don't know how to say his name. I kind of modified him a little bit, and I don't actually use the Shasso Relay rules. He's a decent guy. Really what he does is he has a really nice EMP weapon. So he can actually cause a lot of glancing hits and excuse me. He can do a lot of hull points on vehicles. That being said, I feel like he's a little overpriced for what you get. So, again, Forge World Tau stuff is never all that impressive. If you think that Forge World is broken, just look at the Tau line and you'll realize that it's really not.
The Xenos.
Yeah, the Xenos.
Xenos get no love.
That's true. I mean, we could always rock Severin Loth, the Mastery Level 3 Psyker, I believe, or 2 or 3, who gets to pick all of his powers from whatever he wants.
Well, looks like we lost Casey. Where he froze up on us. All right, we'll end the show there. Thank you guys for watching. If you're going to the LVO, there you go. Hey, you're back. You froze up on us.
Oh. Yeah, I was just saying that Red Scorpions suck and they're cheaters.
Maybe that's why the warp swallowed up your blasphemy.
Hey, when you get to pick all of your psychic powers and every squad gets a free apothecary, tell me that doesn't suck. We should all be making Red Scorpion armies.
All right. I guess that's it for the show. Folks out there, if you're watching this, if you're going to the LVO, let us know in the comments if you're going to be there. What you're playing, and if you are there, give us a shout out. We'll have Casey give hugs and autograph 5x7 face shots of himself.
Hey, do hugs, not drugs, folks.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to tune in next week. Give this video a like, share it with your friends. Tune in to see more. Casey, anything else?
No, just as always, if there's anything cool that you'd like us to talk about or there's something you'd like us to investigate, just give us an email at theatomicsalt@gmail.com. This has been The Atomic Salt, and we've just blown your mind.
Alrighty, guys, have a good night.